Open and welcome you to this month's meeting of Council. The recording of this Council meeting will be available to the public on Council's website for a minimum period of 6 months. In accordance with Council policy, I will now ask Council staff to confirm that the recording has commenced. Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the South East Nation, the Malakadee people of the Yuin River, and the Lilaquani people of the far south. We recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture, and we pay our respects to their elders past and present. Attendance we have tonight, we have Deputy Mayor Thorpe, we have Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Temby, we have Councillor Burgess, Councillor Camber-Smith, Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Gibson, and we will have a late arrival of Councillor Jessup. General Manager, could you introduce your staff, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We've got Director of Governance, Strategy and Sustainable Development, Matthew Grimsey, Acting Director, People and Corporate Services, Raylene Watson, Director, Infrastructure, Climate and Environmental Services, Lockie Krantz, Acting Director, Community Wellbeing Services, Lyle Ground, Manager, Legal and Governance Services, Miranda Ackerman, our Media and Communications Coordinator, Kelly Davis, and Executive Officer, Sue Brzezinczyk.
Thank you. 2.1, apologies. We don't have any apologies. 2.2, do we have any leave of absence?
No.
Absent? No. Do we have any councillors that wish to declare an interest? Nope. 4.008/23, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a councillor to move the minutes as circulated are confirmed for the ordinary meeting of Council, the 26th of July 2023? Councillor Armstrong, seconded. Councillor Temby. Do any councillors wish to make any changes? Well, I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present and the motion is carried. Legislative items. General Manager, are there any legislative items?
No, Mayor.
Urgent matters?
No, Mayor.
Mayor's announcements. I have a couple here. The first one, I'd like to say how honoured I was to lay a wreath in honour of the Vietnam vets that lost their lives in Tasmania on the Friday of the day of the cease of the war. It was very humbling to do that. Also, as you can, the ones that are here and the ones that are online, see our nice award there. And that was received with our economic development. And we received the award in the category of, and I'll read it right, Economic Development Sustainable Initiatives. And that the initiative came about of COVID and the 2019 bushfires. And we could see that there was a direct need for the importance of a resilient food economy that supports a sustained community wellbeing and health and wellbeing. So we were very fortunate to go to Karratha to receive this award, considering the other people that were in for that award. We definitely did a great job, so it was humbling to be there and to congratulate Michelle on all her hard work. So this award is a celebration of our community. The Yuin Valley has a long tradition and connection to its agricultural sector. The project provided both a unique and a creative way to encourage people to engage around local food and what it means to eat healthily and reduce food miles, whilst equally celebrating our rich food culture in a way that helps bridge equality and connection with people and the growers. The activities delivered under the project were devised by the community, for community, so it was great to receive recognition for the meaningful work that has meant so much to our local community. The award also helps to demonstrate that alternative and responsive approaches that local government can adopt when undertaking projects that tackle significance. And I think we all know that with homelessness and the growing costs of living, that the more that we can engage people to take on the projects and we can be the guider of that, I think that's exactly what we're here to do. So again, congratulations to Michelle Glenhill and her team. So now we have public participation, but public question time, 8.1. So all the questions that were taken on notice have been answered and are on our website for everyone to see. There was the questions on notice there was 5, and there was 2 from Caleb Elcock. There was Archie Donnelly, Joe Goodman, and Robert Perigo, and they also will find the responses on the website. Okay. And we had 8.1.3 questions without notice, and that was 1 from A.B. Robertson, 2 from A.B. Robertson, and those are also can be found on our website. And 1 from Jeffrey Swan. So from the gallery, do we have anyone that would like to ask a question from the gallery? Come forward and state your name and where you're from. Thank you.
Caleb Elcock, Dover and Crabtree. I know I've asked 2 questions, but they were from last time. So if I could ask just one question on a point of clarity, if I could, through
Yes, you may.
Yes. May? Yes. So it relates to the questions I asked about DA numbers. And I note that the categories of the types of DAs and the status of them have been detailed out in the answer to my question, which is wonderful. Just to clarify, moving forward within the GM's planning report, will there be another column put in there with the status of DA numbers moving forward?
Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, as per the answer, yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
If you'd like, is that all you have? Yep, okay. Is there any other questions from the gallery? Okay, thank you, Caleb. Page 8.2, General Manager, are there any deputations?
No, Mayor.
Petitions. Do we have any petitions?
Yes, Mayor. I table a petition lodged with Council 27 July 2023 as follows. Petition regarding curbside waste collection and recycling bins. The petition contains 16 signatories and complies with the requirements of Section 57, subsection 2 of the Local Government Act 1993. The recommendation reads that the petition regarding curbside waste collection and recycling bins lodged with Council 27th of July 2023 be received.
Okay, do I have a councillor to move that? Yes, Councillor Burgess, and a seconder, Councillor Thorpe. And I put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Agenda number 9.005/23, a petition request to widen Leamington Road, Cygnet. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Yes, Councillor Gibson, and a seconder, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Gibson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, very simply. I mean, this little stretch of road is pretty embarrassing, and if we can get it fixed, I think, or transferred to council's responsibility, so that council can fix it as some sort of swap, then yeah, I think that'd be really good. So the more action on it, the better.
Thank you. Do I have any other yes, Councillor O'Neill?
Yeah, just support Councillor Gibson's.
Yep.
Support Councillor Gibson's comments. It is I wouldn't say it's a dangerous piece of road, but it is an embarrassment, being it's in the centre, almost the centre of the town, or just outside the town, and to have two large vehicles meet, you've virtually got to go out very wide onto the straddle, onto the gravel,
Yes.
to miss the potholes that form on the edge of the bitumen. They're very, very sharp and very numerous.
Yeah. Thank you. Do I have any other councillor? Yes, Councillor Armstrong?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to add to those really good points, it's also the road that takes you to the boat ramp, of which we only have one of on that side of the town, but it's also a really nice view which takes you to beaches and a lot of other places. So it is used thoroughly and by lots of people. So it would be great to push for a bit of a resurface.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any other comments on that? Yes, Councillor Camp-Smith?
Yeah, I'm fully supportive of all the comments made. I drove it on just on Monday morning, and it's actually a bit scary if you're not used to it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Do you have any closing remarks, Councillor Gibson? No? All right. Well, if that's the case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. And the motion is carried. Is that what we're up to? Yep. 11.008/23, Journal Reports. Do I have a councillor to move a motion that the journal reports and minutes for the period of 1 to 31 July 2023 be received and noted? Councillor Temby and seconded by Councillor Camber-Smith. Councillor Temby, do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make the comment that that there were some excellent work being reported in the operational report, and I appreciate the matters of interest from each department. If possible, could we be provided with a little bit more information about the place-based capital program, as it sounds like it could be very beneficial to our local economy and the community?
Through to you.
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor. The Place-Based Capital Program is a network of people, places and partners from across Australia. It's working together to create more locally led, locally owned, prosperous, equitable, self-sufficient, regenerative and resilient local capital systems, economies and communities. A bit of a mouthful there. The program is sponsored by Ethical Fields, Griffith Centre for Systems Innovation, Town Team Movement, Collaboration for Impact, CBH Group, which is a Wheatbelt partner, and local governments and not-for-profit organisations from throughout Australia. The program is to run for the next 12 months, building a place-based capital network that will work together for the following: to build local capability in community wealth building, financial systems, local investing and collective investing systems and structures, identify and better understand the local and shared capital investment needs, challenges and opportunities, research, design and evaluate capital and investment solutions that support locally led, owned and inclusive capital development, investment, returns and impact, which is including both local, regional and national structures. Create a next steps plan to implement the preferred solutions and to continue to advance place-based capital in all local places across Australia, and to capture and share learnings and outputs widely and broadly to create a bigger impact.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, do I have any other? Yes, Councillor Camber-Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick questions. I noticed there are 2 more whole house changes of use to short stay accommodation, both in Signet, in fact. And given they were both discretionary, and given the sort of the housing crisis and the rising levels of people in housing strife, I just wondered whether we are looking at adapting or changing the criteria for assessing such applications for change of use.
I come through to you, Director.
Through you, Mayor, council is simply following, as a planning authority, is following the planning scheme requirements. There's certainly, these have been set by the state government. There's certainly no proposals or consideration as to changes that we can make to that process.
So we can only assess them on the performance criteria. We don't have any further discretion to say
Correct.
no. Okay. I'll just ask my second question, if I may.
Yes, you may.
There's a really quite high number of children on the waiting list, and I wondered if the review that's sort of close to finishing in our children's services, if that will, or do we hope it will result in that being resolved and more children being able to be taken into our children's
Yes.
services. Sorry,
Yep, no, you're right.
else not working properly.
It's all right. Through you, General Manager, if I can go to the Acting Director, please.
Yes, so we have reached capacity at all our centres now, and we are in close contact with our consultants that are doing the strategy review at the moment. We feed them the data because we update it every week. And yes, they will be focusing on that. They see it. We've already received one report, which will soon be circulating to councillors, and they've identified that we're already at capacity, and as we're standing going forward in the next 10 years, we're just not going to meet the increased demand. So they have some really innovative ideas that will be put forward in their final report that will be obviously for you and everyone to see. But I'll take this opportunity to say that I'll be looking to bring a report to council around doing some design work around potentially a new childcare centre that could potentially take up that capacity. But that'll be next month.
Okay, yes, Councillor Burgess.
Yes, I've just got a query, Mayor, on the planning report. There's been a comparison done between July last year and July this year, and it looks like there's a 25% downturn this year. Is it possible that this could be a trend, or is it just a one-off?
Okay, through to you, Director, if I may.
Through you, Mayor, we are coming off what was a high probably in 21-22. So it's certainly coming back to what are probably more normal levels, and taking into account that you have housing stress, mortgage stress, as well as the increasing cost of construction. So they will be definitely having an impact on that.
Okay, yes, Councillor Gibson.
I've got a few small questions, if that's all right, Mayor.
You're fine.
Through you to the Director, I guess. I was wondering if we could have a little bit more detail on the ongoing actions in the climate change space, maybe at the next meeting. I'm intrigued to know where that's going, but I don't expect an answer now. I wondered also whether whether council would be open to receiving a design proposal from the community regarding the Anchor collection, whether that's an appropriate thing maybe for the Arts and Culture Committee to put forward. We've got a meeting coming up.
Okay, yes.
And
Yeah, okay, yes, you're right.
the last one was, I had a comment about that I was really pleased to see the 30% drop in the skip bin pickups and at waste transfer stations. That's just fantastic. So
Yeah.
full compliments on that.
Yeah.
And the last one was a comment in the quarterly report about the creative programs and events, and it reads that the emphasis this financial year was to have bigger and more significant creative programs and events that could have a greater impact. So I was just trying to work out what that was meant by a greater impact. And if you look at the strategy, the goal is to build the capacity for artists and producers to supply arts and cultural experiences. So I guess the impact should be around that. And I guess my question was, how do fewer and bigger events have a greater impact on this goal? And why isn't it better to support small local events which engage volunteers in the community?
Okay, thank you. The first one, I think, if I can go through you, General Manager, to the Director about the climate change. Thank you.
I think it was just, can we update it?
Oh, yeah, well, can we have an update? Well, yes.
Yeah, I mean, and the clear update at the moment is we are out in the market at the moment recruiting for a climate change officer, which is when you'll start to see some traction.
Okay, and the design for the anchor collection. I mean, just to, yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah. And I'll put the fourth one through to the acting director, if I can, to do with the arts, the comments. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I wasn't at the last Arts and Culture Committee meeting, but I know that it was raised and discussed there, so I'd have to potentially take that on notice around defining the impact. My understanding is that what we want to try and see is more participation in these events, and that potentially could be done by reducing the number, but then putting a lot more effort into driving advertising and promoting of the few events that we do. That said, there's no change to how we want to do things. We do want to support the community. We want to build capacity. And I'm aware, obviously, there's been a few issues that we're working through. We've put out a statement on it, and I encourage you to have a look at the statement because that outlines our position and nothing's changed from that.
Okay, thank you. Is that answered your questions, Councillor? Yes, Councillor?
Jessup.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
I was just waiting for you to turn on. That's all.
There was a comment under organisational culture inventory, QR code-based process now live. The executive team recently considered the feedback and suggestions made to date. I'm just wondering if we can get a bit of a broad overview of what the flavour of those suggestions are for you, Mayor.
So yeah, look, we opened it, went live, and I guess the sentiment was very similar to what we'd been seeing come through with regards to some of the other surveys. There was a little confusion about the value of the performance review process, which again we're looking to adjust and work through that. And I think some of the feedback that came through was that some of the experiences people are getting is inconsistent. So we want to look at how we can make sure that there is a more consistent approach with it. Yeah, look, I mean, largely the feedback was very similar to what we've seen come through around workload and like.
So experiences of the performance review, or just general experience?
Of the performance review and the value of it, yeah. So, largely staff just reflecting on, well, why are we going through this process? And so, there's a little bit of work for us to do to make sure that people value the experience. One of the things that came out of the OCI is people want to, see better reward and recognition, and part of the performance review process is to ensure that people are seen and feel valued. So being able to have those conversations is important. We just need to work on how we undertake those and give people better value. But happy to share more in the quarterly review, quarterly update that we send through from HR if you want to see more on those.
Do I have any other? Is that no, Councillor Temby? You got any closing remarks?
Great, thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, if I will put the motion, all those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Are there any councillors tabling their activities tonight? Yep, you may keep them just for the moment. And I will, does anyone like to speak to them? No? Okay, we don't have to. Councillor Workshops, General Manager, would you like to advise on the workshops that have been held, please?
I will. So our first one was on the 2nd of August, Community Survey and Services Values. So the Acting Director, Community Wellbeing, led a discussion regarding a community satisfaction survey. Same one, we talked about the Huonville Sporting Precinct and Depot area and Huonville Town Hall redevelopment briefing and discussion. So Director Infrastructure, Climate and Environmental Services led a discussion regarding these projects. On the 16th of August 23, there were strategic projects for inclusion in the election strategy document. So I led a discussion around the draft projects. There was also discussion around the strategic plan, and our manager strategy and performance reporting led a discussion around the process and timeline for the strategic plan. And that's the end of the list. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. 13.1, councillor questions. Questions given on notice. There was no councillor questions taken on notice from the July meeting. 13.2, questions without notice. Councillors, are there any? Yes, Councillor Temby.
Thank you. I have a question about the motion that was passed unanimously in March. What progress has been made regarding the Huon Valley Council resolution regarding the regional approach to road safety in conjunction with Kingborough and DSG? I understand we have received positive responses from DSG and Kingborough, and a scoping meeting has been set for the 6th of September with DSG. Is the intention for this scope to be consistent with the wording in the March resolution? And given Council's July resolution that Council commits to further conversations with Kingborough Council regarding collaborative opportunities, has the relevant officer from Kingborough been invited to the 6th of September meeting?
Thank you for that. Through you, General Manager, through to the Director.
We are operating consistent with the motion. You've noted we've got the meeting scheduled for the 6th of September. The motion includes us to work with Kingborough, and we are doing so. Kingborough have not been invited to the meeting on the 6th of September.
Thank you. And so that means that at some stage there'll be a meeting with Kingborough?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do I have any other questions? Yes, Councillor.
Yes, Mayor.
Thorpe?
And it's not in my expertise, so sorry if I haven't worded it correctly, but I'm just interested to know if Council have an estimated number of properties that are listed as not compliant or have compliance issues that haven't been resolved, and also if there's Council have an estimated number of properties that are being rated incorrectly, e.g. if there's a vacant block being rated as a vacant block, but there's a known dwelling on that property. And if we do have that list, what the estimated loss of revenue or missed revenue of rates is on that.
Okay, through you, General Manager, can I go to the Director, please?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Council does not have any estimates of non-compliant properties or what missed revenue may be on those properties. We are currently undertaking an exercise of identifying land that is rated as vacant, that has development, to ensure appropriate rating is applied in the first instance and that appropriate compliance action is undertaken.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Gibson?
I've got a couple of questions, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Firstly, I'd like to thank Lisa, Paul and Ellen Witt for taking their Sunday to run a workshop on the future management models of the Cygnet Town Hall. Unfortunately, the session was dominated by complaints about safety issues, and there wasn't a lot of time to actually discuss the subject. But the question is, the subject that kept interfering with the discussion about management models was about the safety checks. And so I have a question around mostly I think the electrical system. Since the lift went in, it seems like the power is tripping more often, but maybe that's not the case. I'm not sure. We really need an electrician just to check that the power points are all safe and maybe assess the overloading of the power system.
Okay, thank you. Can I, through you, General Manager, go to the Director? I'm not sure whether that's compliance or whole.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah. Look, it's not something I'm aware of. In fact, it hasn't been referred back to me that safety was a theme of that meeting. I'm not aware of electrical issues down there. We have routine essential services checks, like in all buildings. Given the interest has been raised and the issue is raised, I'll check in with the team tomorrow and make sure that we go down and check it out. I would add as well, there's recently been other electrical works with the installation of the electric vehicle charger and things down there. So there's just been extensive work, and each time they're doing work, they are checking the boards, etc. But we'll go have another look at it.
There was discussion about a PowerPoint too close to a sink, and another one that looks like it's damaged in some way. Anyway, worth checking out that it's safe, I guess.
Will do.
Yes, you had.
Oh, yes. That email that came across our desk, I was just wondering if we could write a letter of support to Huon Valley's Terra Australis Readers and Writers Festival, as we have in previous years.
Yes, that'll be, yep, we can do that. Yes, definitely. You finished now, or you got some? Okay. Councillor Campbell-Smith. That's fine, yes.
Sorry, I've got a few questions, if that's okay. Firstly, I'd like it on the meeting record that the ABS figures for employment in aquaculture in the Huon Valley are 12.8% of the workforce, or just under 1 in 8 people. The recent Salmon Tasmania report says that 1 in 4 jobs in the Huon are related to or supported by aquaculture. But this has now been written up as direct employment figures by at least 2 outlets. Council also must be careful to keep to the facts. This is relevant since Huon Aquaculture is publishing a new rendering facility in Lonavale and putting out notices to locals as if it's a done deal. So my question is, will this facility require a planning permit? And if so, has a DA yet been lodged with council?
If I can come through you, General Manager, to the Director.
Through you, Mayor, we haven't had any proposals presented to us as yet to assess whether it firstly requires a permit and secondly an application being lodged.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Secondly, last year council invested 175k into the OCI Blue Bus and a staff survey. We're now spending a further 150k this year on similar initiatives. Further developing a people strategy. We talk about investing in people and have a stated ambition to be an employer of choice. However, we continue to lose valued employees who are hard to replace. The costs of recruiting and training replacements, the loss of productivity during that period, and the upset caused to staff when good people leave must be very high. Therefore, I'd like to know what steps are taken when staff members indicate an intention to leave, whether there's more we could be doing to retain people, and what lessons have been learnt from recent departures and any exit interviews that have been given.
Pass that one through to you, General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We are, of course, aware of the impacts you've highlighted when it comes to staff leaving the organisation, and we are certainly looking to retain staff. This includes our people leaders having conversations with people noting their intention to leave. working through the reasons why they are looking to leave. We're realistic about the fact we cannot retain 100% of the staff that work with us. And, you know, that's because, you know, a lot of the people that are leaving are also exploring, you know, their career, starting up businesses. It's a pretty exciting cycle in economic terms. And there's also just, you know, personal reasons, family reasons that people are leaving. So it's just not practical for us to retain everyone. I think one of the key things which is impacting on staff, and we are seeing some people leave and getting that feedback through our exit surveys, is just the workload, the pressure.
Okay.
And we are dealing with that in a structured way. As you know, back in July we talked about the review that we've undertaken around resource and pain points, and being able to look to, you know, work through this with staff. So I think that's a really important part. We know, you know, we talked through, as we made our way through the budget, additional resources went into planning, went into finance, emergency management was also provided for, and a lot of these roles have all been done off the corner of their desk. So it does have an impact on the well-being of our staff, and naturally we need to continue to work through that, and we are working through that with the team. I think it's also just important to note that our turnover rate is approximately 14%. Some of our colleagues, our peers, are experiencing 16 to 18% just north of us. So we are travelling reasonably well. And, you know, sort of reflecting interstate, as was shared when we came back from ALGA, that West Australian median is 22.9%. I met with someone today and their staff turnover is 40%. And it is the environment. We've got an environment that, you know, there's a lot of skill shortage, there's a lot of people making lifestyle decisions to do different things. So I think we fare pretty well, but, you know, you can be assured that we are looking to retain our staff as best we can. We won't get it 100% right, and there's lots of different reasons, but one of the key ones we're working on is that workload pressure at the moment.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. The third one is, I'm slightly concerned. I recently learnt that a meeting was held earlier this month with Kingborough Council, City of Hobart and DSG regarding my motion on integrated transport. It's fantastic that this meeting took place, but it's just a shame that I had to hear from someone outside of HBC, and I suppose one thing is, when will we all be briefed on the meeting's outcomes and next steps? But also, you know, can we please be kept adequately informed, because, you know, there are instances where we hear about things from members of the community, and we need to be able to respond adequately to questions and rumours going forward.
Yes, through you, General Manager, can I pass that through?
No,
you're
I'm
going
happy
to do
to
that?
share
Yes,
an update on that.
No,
So I want to
great.
apologise, Councillor Campbell-Smith. We did miss an action on the back of your motion in our ongoing status in the pack, so I will apologise up front.
Thank you.
We've reinstated it, so there was an update in there and it got left out, unfortunately, which was inadvertently removed. But a meeting was held. There was currently no resources available for the project from any party. There's no commitment for funding for the project. The proposed budget of $50,000 was actually considered insufficient, and so the project scope was considered a little unclear. So at this stage there's no clear direction for us to be able to progress the matter given the feedback from those stakeholders, so all present in that meeting.
Yeah, okay.
And it was quite clear that they all said they had no budget.
Including DSG.
Yeah. In fact, DSG were open and said it'd probably be another 2 or 3 years before they would be getting through their current priority projects in able to do this. They did talk about an opportunity for collation of, you know, current data that might be around there, but again, the appetite was very low from those sitting around the table.
It's rather sad that they're actually cutting services rather than improving public transport. But. Okay, the last one. I still think we urgently need a full update and a chance for questions and council discussions on the current Tasmanian Planning Commission hearings and the LPS process, the local provision schedule. We do have some workshop dates free, and since it's related closely to our land use and development strategy work, I wondered if we might consider having sort of consecutive week discussions on these issues.
Through you, General Manager, to the Director, if I may.
Through you, Mayor, the 20th of September is audit panel, so that day is not available for any workshops.
Oh, okay.
I'm not quite sure on the 11th of October. So we have been providing some monthly updates, but they are concise.
Yeah.
The alternative is to refer to the TPC hearing, which has the TPC website, which has everything. So we'd probably want to know more what it is you're actually wanting to understand and get out of a discussion.
I suppose it's the way the hearings are trending with respect to the directions that are coming out of the TPC. I mean, I know I've obviously been following it, but it's hard to to keep that sort of overview of what's happening with so many other things going on, and I think it'd be good to have that, have an open discussion, a councillor discussion on that, and ELT as well, of course, yeah, and things like the ramifications to council of some of the trends that appear to be happening in the hearings.
We can take that on board, I think. Yeah. We can look at that other date, because I'm not sure about that, and I can put the feelers out for. Yes.
I was going to say it's really difficult to actually highlight what trends are coming out of it.
Well, can we perhaps talk about some of it in relation to the LUDs when we have our LUDs workshop?
They're really two separate matters for the purposes of those discussions. We don't want to get LPS and LUDs tangled together.
Well, they're very related in terms of land use zoning, I would imagine. But
Can we have can we talk through this with you? Maybe one day next week.
Sure.
And see how we can look at what
I'll
you're
try
talking
and
about.
phrase out my exact questions.
Yes, that'd be really good if we could do that. Thank you. Yes, I was coming back to you, Kathy. Thank you, Councillor Temby.
Thank you. Just two quick questions.
Yes.
One is left over from last month. I asked if the council could receive a copy of the KPMG Regional Workforce Planning Report, which was done for the Southern Employment Training Network. Has the GM had the opportunity to check with the board to see if this could be shared?
Yes, I did. We had our board meeting last Thursday. It was discussed and agreed that we would be sharing it, or the organisation would be sharing it, not the council. We did talk about some avenues as to how we might distribute it, and we're all really conscious that it is a valuable document to industry and more broadly to the community. So I'll sort of leave it at that, and as I say, the plan was to work out how we were going to distribute it and make sure it got exposure. So
that's great. I think it'll be really good, from an economic perspective for the valley. Recently, Councillor Camber-Smith shared an article about bushfire in the conversation, and it prompted a couple of questions. Could we have an update on what Council is doing to support building the community's bushfire preparedness through knowledge and capabilities? And I participated in the Forest Practices Authority Forum on Climate Change and heard Professor David Bowman and other scientists speak about what can be done to mitigate risk of harm caused by extreme bushfires. Could Council invite Professor Bowman to provide Council, if he was able, with advice relevant to our adaptation planning?
Okay, yes. I'll come through you, gentlemen.
Yeah. So yeah, look, we can certainly check in with the team on the preparedness piece. I think it's also important to maybe even reach out to our broader committee that Councillor Burgess is heading up as well, so we can get a better understanding more broadly, in a sense of inviting the guest speaker. Ultimately, I think we had. It suggested we have a lot of workshops already, so if it is something that councillors would like, then obviously we can certainly coordinate it for councillors to hear further.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Councillor Jessup.
Mayor, just on that issue, I heard the Professor on the radio this morning, and he's actually doing an interesting study on looking at the fire risk of gardens and actually making a fire rating thing, and they're actually doing a research study at the moment. And note the Lord Mayor of Hobart Town had actually had her garden assessed, and he's looking for any sites across the south where his students can come and build a model, and what they do, they come and take some of your plants, put them in a big furnace and see how flammable they are. But I think that would be an interesting issue for us in the Hewing, given that our gardens are probably bigger, and the description of gardens he was saying was would fit many of the larger blocks here. But I don't know if there's any maybe the NRM group could maybe look at even sponsoring him to come down and do a public plant burning or whatever the process is. But no, it's very, very interesting, and they're investing a lot in helping residents, because the unkept gardens were one of the biggest risk factors to determine if a house got burnt down in a fire or not.
I think also that we do have a lot of quite big gardens that do our garden walks and do, I know quite a few of those that are around the place. So yeah, they might even be empowered to know what's in their garden and what not to plant as well. So yeah, it's definitely a good suggestion. So we'll take that one on board. Thank you. Do I have any other questions? No? Just hang. Councillor Jessup, did you like to make a statement or question?
No, Mayor, I'm waiting on Mr Grimsey to get back to me on some advice on the appropriate manner to do that. At the moment, I see no reason to provide advice. I have sent written correspondence to that effect. If the Director, Legal and Governance suggests otherwise, I will make a due considered statement.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. .3, Councillor Notices of Motion. Councillor Temby, are you happy to move the motion as included in the report?
Yes, Mayor.
So do I have a seconder for Councillor Temby's motion? Councillor Camber-Smith. Councillor Temby, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Currently, the Huon Valley Roamers Land Care Group has been working for the last 4 years on a piece of land that currently Council holds under licence from Crown Land. They are acting as agents for the Council and are insured under Landcare Tasmania. If Council takes on this new licence next to Mosquito Point, it would allow the group to continue their work for the community along the river towards Huonville between the kayak ramp and Taswater without having to go to the Crown for permission every year. Now, I can read out what they've done for the last 4 years, but it will take a fair bit of time because they have done an incredible amount of work. They have really regenerated the riparian zone. They've been cleaning up rubbish. I won't go into the detail, but I can if you want to. What I will do is actually just address some of the advice that was given by the General Manager. So The General Manager advice suggests that the annual approval process is straightforward and has not presented a barrier. However, in reality, it's hard enough just getting a group of people together each month to maintain the riparian zone, plant natives and clean up after others. It is very challenging and at times frustrating when vandalism occurs. Their results, however, are clearly evident and has resulted in more community use of the area and substantially less littering and vandalism over the last 4 years. Additionally, I question what more of a formal submission should be expected of this volunteer land care group beyond what has been formally stated in the background of this submission, which is a continuation of their responsible land care, which they have undertaken over the last 4 years. This is the formal submission. This motion will allow for the land care group to deal with only one entity in its long-term plans to develop the area for public use and increased amenity for Huonville and Ranelagh. In doing so, facilitate a less bureaucratic journey to apply to do plantings and to have works done for picnic areas and walking trails. If the Council supported this motion to apply for a licence from Crown Land, it would be facilitating community capacity to support its community vision and the 2019 Ranelagh Master Plan.
Thank you for that, Councillor Temby. Do I have anyone else that would like to speak? You have a question? You may.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I think this is basically a good idea, but I've said that before without enough knowledge of things. So, could somebody explain to me what the difference between a licence and a lease would be? Please.
Yeah.
Through you, Mayor, a very quick summary is that a licence is a right to use, whereas a lease is a right to occupy to the exclusion of all others.
Right. Okay. Yes.
So use as in clean it, maintain it.
Used for whatever purpose is authorised under the licence.
Okay, excellent. So it could potentially be used not for just cleaning things.
It could be used for recreation, could be
Okay.
used for maintenance purposes, could be used
Lovely,
historically,
thank you.
could be used for grazing.
That was what I was sort of getting at. So licence doesn't mean licence just to clean it. If there's other meanings to that licence. Thank you very much.
Yes, Councillor Thorpe.
I'd just like to note that General Manager's advice also reiterates its value and support to land care groups. And I just want to also pick up on the point where this licence could be premature, where we've had a motion in the past where we've made also premature decisions, I'd say. So just wondering if we are confident there are no other licensees or leaseholders of these titles or these areas.
Do you know, do we have that information, Director?
Mayor, we can look it up.
Yep.
It might take a couple of minutes.
Okay, all right. Do I have another question? We can come back to that one. Yes, Councillor Camber-Smith?
Just briefly, I'd like to reiterate support for this motion. I think Council has a role to facilitate, empower and support volunteer groups. We have a volunteer strategy. We put a great deal of emphasis on, supporting and volunteer groups. I think this is a very simple way in which we could assist a group that's proven itself to be extremely effective and hardworking and diligent, and is clearly creating a great amenity, not just for residents of Ranelagh, but anybody else who wants to, use the riverside and launch a kayak. So I'm fully supportive of this, and I don't think it'd be particularly onerous for Council to do this.
Okay, thank you. I have one question, if I may, through to the General Manager, through you to the Director. The other groups that we have, that like Franklin, do we have other licences where they do their work, or do they do the they have to do the renewal every year. We have the Franklin, yeah. I'm wondering what they do. They must have to apply for theirs. Are we opening up the door for all other groups for council to take over the licence or the lease, whatever? Yeah.
Through
Yeah.
you, Mayor, I can
Yes,
answer
thank
that.
you.
So the majority do the same process as currently done by the Romas. So they're applying annually for the area in which they're working. Other groups, if they happen to be working on land that we have leased or licensed for some other purpose, obviously they're operating under that, but we have not, to my knowledge, formalised a lease for the express purpose of land care group operations, because not having a lease or a licence does not preclude them from undertaking that activity.
Okay, thank you. All right, yes, Councillor Jessup?
Mayor, I'm assuming that the council would have some form of process with these groups as well, and I'm just wondering if our process is more or less or about as onerous as Crown Lands is. Through you, Mayor, to the Director, maybe.
Would you like to answer that one?
What kind of process you?
Yeah, what you're referring to?
Well, you've just mentioned that there's other groups who use our land. Do we just say, off you go, do what you want, or do we actually have a form, or do we have a process, or do we? What do we have?
To clarify, we've
Director?
got where we have a lease or a licence on Crown land, say a foreshore area that's on Crown land, but we're leased or licensed for it. We don't have much of a process to allow them to do that land care, those land care operations. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Director? Yep.
Sorry,
Yep.
can I just add to, because we already are maintaining those areas ourselves, so we are already responsible for litter and maintaining those, foreshore areas, etc., for other reasons.
So a follow-up question to that then:
Yep.
if we took the licence from Crown, does that then transfer an implied obligation to council to clean them up and do litter and stuff?
It's more than implied. We are responsible. We are the licence owner of that land, and we are responsible for maintaining that land.
Thank you.
Yes,
So
Director.
through you, Mayor, according to the list, there are no lease or licence interests registered on that portion of land.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Cambersmith?
So if it's Crown land, who's responsible now? Is that PWS, Parks and Wildlife? And do they do anything? Because I find it very hard to believe that they do.
Yeah, that may be the case, but they are responsible, and they do undertake activities on all the land that Crown Land has authority for.
Yes.
Mayor, it would be subject to the terms of the licence, but we do have licences and leases whereby we still need to get permission from the Crown for any works that we undertake on Crown land. So it may well be the case that, depending on what the works are, there may be a requirement that we've still got to go to the Crown. So it'll be subject to whatever the terms of the licence is.
Yes, Councillor Gibson?
I just have a question. Without knowing the terms of the licence, how are we able to vote on this?
Correct, I suppose. Yes, Councillor Demi? Yeah.
Perhaps Councillor Gibson might consider an amendment to the motion for council to consider and take all these things into consideration and bring it back to a future council meeting.
I'm happy to move a motion, an amendment to that motion along those lines.
Can we give the Director time to catch up?
If Cathy and I both support an amendment, does it need another person to?
Through you, Mayor, it's always fiddly with notices of motion because the mover has to move the motion, and it's so we just have as a practice to amend.
Yes.
Mayor, for the purpose of an amendment, I would suggest it is simply that council considers taking on a licence to include the riparian zone. So that would be sufficient to do the inquiries and then bring it back to council.
Okay. I'll ask the mover, the person of the motion and the seconder. Are you happy? No? They don't have to do that? Okay. All right. So I need a seconder.
Well,
Yep, Councillor Jessup. And we vote on that now. Okay. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. And the amendment is carried. So now the amendment comes the motion. And I ask all councillors, do I ask Councillor Temby to close? Oh, it's your motion. But didn't we vote on that though already? Yeah? Yeah. Okay, so all right. Yes, okay. All right, go for it.
No, I don't think there's any need to close on that.
Can I just ask a quick question? In that advice to the director, if we can explore some of the issues like the liability, what can we do if this group goes defunct, for example? Can we give the lease licence back to the
Yes.
Crown? So
Yeah.
can we just explore some of the risks associated with
It may,
potentially having a pup?
it may give us the grounds for not doing it or
Conditions and
in
so forth,
future.
yeah,
Yes.
But it's a good principle, so I'm happy to support
Yeah.
the principle. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
Sorry, Mayor.
yes,
Could I just ask a question to that?
you may.
How much, we've noted as a council the workload pressures for staff and the many priority projects that we've already agreed to and the additional motions that are being added to that workload. So I'd like some guidance on how much time and effort should be put into the risk assessment so that I can get the quality correct.
Thank you, Director. Yes, to you, Councillor Jessup. Yes.
Look, I would feel that from your own knowledge, you should be able to give us enough guidance. I'm not saying we go and get somebody in to consult, but what are the pros and cons? And I trust your judgment and your staff's judgment on giving us. But yes, I fully acknowledge the time and maybe administering this might be one of the risks and the time involved with administering this into the future if there's extra. So yeah, generally.
Genuine, what you're asking for, it's just that guidance on what
high
level
level
of
up here. Yep.
Sure, high level. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Temby.
So they're looking at this to coincide as from about April 24. So I'm just thinking that hopefully that will, and I do appreciate the amount of workload issues and I certainly don't want to contribute.
Yep.
I just see this as a community benefit. It could be a win-win for council, but I do understand the workload and I think that we do not need to have it as an immediate action. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much. So you've got no further? Okay. Put it to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. And the motion is carried. Thank you everyone for considering and finding some alternatives that might work or not, so thank you. Okay, agenda item number 15.030/23, the annual food safety report July 2022 to June 2023. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Armstrong, seconder. Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Armstrong, do you wish to speak to this report? No, you don't. Do I have anyone to speak against it? No? All right. Well, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Agenda number 15.031/23. Recreational Water Quality Report, July 22 to June 23. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Gibson, a seconder. Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Gibson, would you like to speak to this report?
Yes, briefly.
Yeah.
I went through all of the figures and there seems to be the usual sort of fluctuation, but nothing too dramatic. I did have a question regarding the test sites for the beaches in the Huon. They are Dover, Randalls and Verona. Now, all of those beaches are very highly flushed by tidal movement, and if we're actually trying to assess the safety of beaches for recreation, I would like to see the test sites moved to beaches such as Sandrock, Drip Beach, 7-inch Beach, beaches where people recreate and swim, but that just doesn't have that tidal flushing. So it's sort of, if you're actually looking for where the problems are, you've got to look at the worst case scenario. So is it possible to, in the future, change our test sites so that we're...
Okay, I can pass that through the Director.
Through you, Mayor, we'll discuss that with Environmental Health to make sure they fit within the guidelines, and they'll consider that.
Thank you. Otherwise, I thought the report, I mean, it's good to have the report, it's good to be doing the testing, both the beaches and obviously the pools. I noticed that the Hastings Caves pools had the worst, which is not surprising, I guess.
Yeah.
Statistics here and there testing, but yeah, council pools seem to be all right.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Jessup.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, similar comment to Councillor Gibson. I know that this report appears to be a statutory report to some extent, that we've got to send data off other places, but it would be nice if there is other data that we can include in the sort of covering report, such as I don't know if Taswater are sampling places like Port Huon, where they, because that's obviously an issue. But I do agree that what would be important, I think, is to look at what data we have for where people are commonly using the water, so where there's recreational bases, and seeing if we can look at some sampling. And maybe that's a proposition to come back to council about the cost of that. I don't know how much each sample would cost, but it wouldn't be cheap, I suspect.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Point there. I mean, I think that Taswater responsibility is put out in their reports. In fact, I know that because I've had to actually put them out. So I don't think we want to be taking responsibility for sampling their sites. It's their responsibility to sample their sites.
I'm not saying, just point of order, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if we have that data available, it would be good to have that in this covering report, so we get a broader...
So Taswater's
if
results.
it's available to include in that advice to council.
We could probably guide people to that report. Yeah.
Yep. Happy to explore that. And I think the other one, just from yours, Councillor Gibson, is maybe it would be good to understand how we've selected those sites. So maybe the risk assessment that's gone through to coming up with the sites. So yeah, we can. And just understand why they've chosen the sites and why they've not picked those other sites that you've mentioned. I think would be useful to understand as well.
Okay. So I have no one else to speak to that. You don't need to close, council. No, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. The motion is carried. Agenda item 15.03223, lease of public land, the Ranelagh recreational area. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion?
I move a point of a procedural motion, Mayor.
Yes, you may.
And the procedural motion that this be laid on the table to the next meeting, is that the term?
Through you, Mayor, the matter be deferred to the September council meeting.
Thank you. And so if I can move that motion, please, and I'll explain why in a minute if people want me to.
Do I need a seconder for that? Yes, do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Gibson? Yeah. No, there's no discussion now. It's just, yeah, we've deferred. Okay? Oh, yes, I know, yes. So I'll go to all those in favour of the, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, so no more discussion. Guess what? 19.036/23. We are about to move into closed council, so I'd like to thank those in the gallery tonight for attending and those watching at home. The next meeting of the ordinary meeting of council is Wednesday, the 27th of September at 6 p.m. So thank you guys for coming along tonight. Yep. I was just making sure that was all quiet, Kelly. The recommendation that the meeting now be closed to the public at pursuant to Regulation 15 of the Meeting Procedures Regulations to discuss the following matters: confirmation of minutes and general reports. Do I have a councillor to move a motion to go into closed? Councillor Thorpe. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Armstrong. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. The motion is carried. I advise that in accordance with Yuin Valley's audio recording of council meeting policy, recording of the open session of the meeting ceases at